Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my site softer?
Can I make my site firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. Enjoy personalized comfort for better sleep night after night. And now, max out your savings. The more you buy, the more you save on beds, bases, and more. Plus, get free home delivery on any smart bed with base. Limited time. Check it out at a Sleep Number store near you or at sleepnumber.com today.
Parles-tu français? Hablas español? Parli italiano? If you've used Babbel, you would. Babbel's conversation-based techniques teaches you useful words and phrases to get you speaking quickly about the things you actually talk about in the real world. With lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts and voiced by real native speakers, Babbel is like having a private tutor in your pocket. Start speaking with Babbel today. Get up to 55% off your Babbel subscription right now at babbel.com/Wondery. Spelled BABBEL.com/Wondery. Rules and restrictions may apply.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Heritage Radio Network is supported by Visit Ithaca, where great minds meet the great outdoors. Check them out at visitithaca.com. Ithaca is known for outstanding dining. And here's a word from one of those great local businesses.
My name is Kukwa Jibodi Yomepe, and the name of the restaurant is Asempe Kitchen. I started out at the farmer's market, and the reception we received was so overwhelming that I thought it made sense to stay in the area. My goal so far has been to create some space for everybody who feels disenfranchised or feels like they're not represented to come together and have a place to be. So we have been working really hard to be more than just a restaurant. So like a place to just rest, get some really good food, and maybe some good conversation. We have community tables, and I kept the communal tables because of the way I feel about building community. The food is mostly vegetarian. It's from West Africa, mostly from Ghana. I'm originally from Ghana, West Africa. I've been in the U.S. about 30 years. On Sundays, we do a brunch, and during brunch, we offer meat as an option to folks who eat meat. I'm very much a purist when it comes to the food. I like to offer people the authentic, stuff.
To plan your next trip or to find out more information, go to visitithaca.com.
Welcome back to Pizza Quest. I'm Peter Reinhardt. So, 2 award-winning chefs and a marketing guru walk into a bar and freak out. Yes, sounds like the beginning of a bad joke. Sorry. But the result was a new product called Pizza Freak, a frozen Detroit-style pizza and focaccia hybrid whose mission is to create a restaurant-quality pizza that a family can enjoy at home by elevating frozen pizza through chef techniques, premium ingredients, and a fine dining mindset. Ambitious, yes, but they're pulling it off, and we're about to find out how they did it, how they make it and brought it to market, and who they are. Chefs Brad Daniels and Brad Kilgore, yes, the 2 Brads, and marketing partner Matthew McKenney, welcome. We're going to get to know you guys over the next few minutes, but first, tell us how the 3 of you came up with the concept of Pizza Freak.
Great, thanks, Peter.
Sure.
Well, where do we start, Matt?
Well, I'll speak for these guys. And I think Brad Daniels is having some sound problems, by the way. So it was during COVID, and we were having conversations about what was happening in the restaurant industry and what was happening in pizza, particularly the thicker pan style pizzas, which had really blown up in popularity all of a sudden in both Miami and Philadelphia. So these were pizzas that you had a hard time getting. You had to order them a week in advance. They give you a 15-minute window next Wednesday to go pick it up. And we thought, wow, what's happening here? All of a sudden, Detroit style pizza is blowing up, which is a style that we all loved. I thought it was kind of, underrepresented in both of our markets, and maybe that's why it was starting to grow in popularity. Um, and so Brad Kilgore and I were discussing it. He had been hosting a pop-up in his restaurant at the time that was making a similar style. And Brad Daniels and I were working in our Drexel test kitchen, where I have a bunch of kind of advanced culinary equipment.
At Drexel University?
At Drexel University, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And, Brad's an instructor there, and while he was building his first restaurant in the Philly area, Trissini, he was helping me show other chefs how to use that technology. So as a culinary instructor there, Brad we'd have demonstrations, and one of the things that we were talking a lot about were last year, as restaurants were kind of limited in how much staffing they could have because of social distancing. People couldn't make as much food as sometimes they had demands for. So the idea was to spread out production in advance of service by making food and then either freezing it or chilling it effectively so you get extended shelf life. So we started down that road from business perspective, really at looking at what's the style of dough that would lend itself well, and we began reading books like your books and Dan Ricker's book and every good bread book and pizza book we could find, and analyzing recipes and going back and forth with Brad Kilgore about what do you think the right type
Yeah,
of
I mean, back and
and
forth, we were sharing recipes either on like Google Docs, and you were shipping finished products from Philadelphia down to Miami.
So you were at the time you were based in Miami, right?
Yeah. I still based and live in Miami,
you're still in Miami, okay.
People weren't traveling. It wasn't during the traveling time of COVID. Everyone was pretty well stayed put.
Yeah.
And then Brad, became our hands, and then a lot more than that. And that's how we all came together as partners on it. And but yeah, it started off as shipping the quote unquote finished product or sampled product, our test run, 1,000 miles south for me to try it out and then give feedback.
It's a lot of frozen shipping going on there.
It was sort of the beta testing of, can we ship this thing too? Which a lot of people were ordering food shipped to their doorstep at that time. So that all these paths are sort of how the three of us got together to build this.
So that's kind of like the origin story, but let's go back a little deeper into both Brads are very successful, award-winning chefs. Brad Kilgore, you're based in Miami, but you just opened a hugely ambitious project in the Transamerica building in San Francisco, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I've been working on that the last year and a half.
It's called Ama.
Yeah, Ama's our higher end restaurant, cocktail bar, lounge, really gorgeous design. It's a Italian restaurant with Japanese influences. Itameshi is the style. And we're about 6 weeks in now.
So if I'm not mistaken, this Ama refers to these topless deep sea divers from Japan who would go diving for shellfish.
Yeah, abalone shellfish, lobsters, anything, scallops from Hokkaido.
I can only imagine the graphics at the restaurant.
Yes, there's some homage to them, and I think they were also known for just being very free-spirited women, because it wasn't often that women maybe had their own businesses at that time, and so I think that also goes along with potentially why they were topless.
This is a great backstory. I've never heard of a restaurant built on that, but that's kind of cool. And of course, San Francisco is the perfect place to launch an idea like that.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So you're back and forth then between Florida and San Francisco?
Florida, San Francisco, a little bit in Latin America and Honduras, and we have a project in Mexico under construction as well. So spending a good amount of time on a plane these days.
That's amazing. And Brad Daniels, you're still based in Philly, right? And you're still at Drexel. But in addition to that, you've got, I know that Trissini's been around for a few years now, high-end, very creative Italian, what would you call it? Traditional Italian?
We kind of like to call it rustically refined modern Italian, but
Yeah.
the more I say the word modern, it makes less and less sense because we're just really going back to the roots on a lot of things. We're doing a lot of dry aging in-house and charcuterie making, and obviously all made homemade fresh and extruded pastas and desserts and gelato. And, so the modern part is kind of doesn't make sense, but
But I know that the last time I was in Philly, I had intended to come. It was on my wish list to get over there to eat at Gersini, and then something came up in our family, and I wasn't able to get over. But
we say Philly for geographical ease on people, but all my places are based in the Philadelphia area, greater Philadelphia area.
Yeah.
So Gersini's in Montgomery County, a little further, about 25 minutes outside the city. We have a place at a really, really Victorian, old school town, the very, very most southern point of New Jersey, called Cape May, which is an old school steaks, chops, seafood towers, things like that. And then we just launched our newest, very ambitious project in Bucks County, which is a little further east than Tristini, called Glorious Sports and Spirits, and it's a really fun, whimsical Italian-American pizza-fueled sports bar. So
I looked at the menu. The menu is spectacular, and maybe want to jump on a plane and get over there. I've got an old childhood friend who lives in Bucks County. I've got to connect with him and get him over there.
It's a fun spot, especially this time of the year with all the sports and stuff going on and holidays shaping up. So we've been in it for about 5 weeks now, and it's starting to take shape of its own.
Well, so you got a lot of projects going, and both of you.
Not as much as the other Kilgore. I can't keep up with him.
You guys, but between the two of you, and then you've got Matt, kind of the glue. It seems like in all this.
Matt is absolutely
the glue. For sure. He's the glue, and amongst a few other things.
Well, and the butterfly whisperer, because he's always trying to grab me and Kilgore to out of the ether to get in a meeting and figure things out while we got all these other balls in the air.
Well, I know that I've over the years I've run into Matthew a number of times at the various pizza shows and food shows, and you as well, Brad. We got a chance to go out to last year to have a wonderful dinner at Chef Sholo's, and it's been there's been a lot of ferment going on in your world, especially since in addition to everything else that you do, you've got access to some great tools and equipment. Matt's been representing some pretty on point restaurant tools, I guess you would say, and so it seems like between the three of you, you got a lot of opportunity to brainstorm and to come up with ideas. And this one, Pizza Freak, is again out of the box.
Well, even that, we put it into practice too. Both Brad and I sell our product. So we're also customers of our own business, which is, multifold useful. We can also tell our potential clients, other chefs, buddies, how to use it. And the best way is to use it. But him and I have been selling either our crusts or pizzas at different events, catering, restaurants for years now also. So that's something that Brad and I both have been doing for quite some time.
Well, you bring an awful lot of knowledge and industry experience to this project. So let's focus in on the project itself, because I think our listeners really want to hear not only what Pizza Freak the product itself is, because I've had it. I had it last year at the Philly Chefs Conference we got a chance to taste it with a couple of hundred other people. But so we'll describe a little bit about what that is, and then how you brought it to market, because that's the other side of the coin, is not only making it, but then you got to sell it. So I'm gonna
lead to Brad, but starting off with our focus was crust and which is dough, right? How important our dough has always been, and getting it absolutely consistent. But we wanted a certain finish line. We knew where that finish line was, but getting it there and getting there consistent. And that's where Brad really came in with Matt and Maya's dream, and started getting very experimental on folds and other ways to introduce the yeast, etc. And really, he was doing it without even changing the recipe per se, because we kind of felt like we got close to the recipe. But Brad kind of got us to the biggest next step, and this is quite a few years ago at this point, and has babysitted that process for a while. And Brad, I'll let you kind of tell us about where you
the
landed with
breakthrough,
that.
Brad?
Honestly, it was just repetition. It was constant critiquing ourselves and not being complacent with a really good product. We wanted an excellent product. And then we had to kind of at times go back to the drawing board and figure out how to scale it while maintaining the same integrity. And then the hardest part in ways is we're going against the grain in some ways in traditional bread baking, because we're looking to not have a par baked pizza. We're having a fully baked product that needs to be frozen and then rethermed with three very different characteristics that are kind of cooking at the same time, which is bread, sauce, and cheese. They're three very different things. So the design and where we are now just really came from trial and error. And I think we broke a lot of ground when we opened Tricini, we were just baking every day. And when it came time for us to develop a bread program, I was like, time out. I've already done this for the past 18 months. We already got a phenomenal bread in this fricaccia, as we call it now. So we implemented that. We implemented that same process into our bread service. So we were just doing it every day and tweaking it and tasting it and freezing it and therming it like accidentally, and then just going through the steps to really see how far we could take this to be delicious, all the qualities that you love in a square pie. But then the additive of freezing and retherming was kind of
a lot of layers of complexity in all this. Yeah,
there's a lot of layers of complexity and things that we had to almost reverse engineer from traditional or from newfound par-baked frozen bread products. We had to go kind of, like I said, the opposite direction, against the grain.
So you almost had to reinvent the wheel.
A little bit, like almost not reinvent the wheel, because I think that's being a little too bold. But once we got it in a small capacity, we then needed to figure out the best way to scale it. And that was a whole nother year-long process to figure out the best ways, the best methods, the time, the temperatures to be able to scale it and still get the same product.
So let me backtrack just a second here. So since you both have connections with the Drexel, University Food Innovation Lab, did you do any of the work there? And did you get the students involved in this project?
We did not get students involved for probably good reasons.
It wasn't part of the curriculum.
for their own health and safety.
First they're students. So you want, as a teacher, and I was a professor for a couple of years at Drexel in the culinary department, you want to have it figured out before you start teaching kids, because if you're just guessing, then their inclination is, well, I can just guess and figure it out along the way too, which is not the way you want to properly train young culinarians.
Yeah.
But two, we were keeping this pretty close to chest. We wanted to figure this out. We wanted to get it to market. We wanted to have something spectacular. And a lot of the early days definitely were started at Drexel because, frankly, like Chef Kilgore said, it was COVID.
That's right.
Culinary classes were remote, and we had kind of free reign of the kitchens for a short period to R&D. So I give a lot of thanks to those guys for helping us get the first couple innings of the game.
So then you talked about some of the challenges, the one of which being, first kind of mastering the dough, then figuring out how it's going to bake. And you're not talking about an unbaked pizza. You're a fully baked, not par baked, but fully baked pizza that goes into and then gets frozen.
Fully baked crust, frozen,
and then top.
raw topping.
But
then you got to figure out those three very different ingredients, which, like I said, is a whole milk blend mozzarella cheese that's frozen. We have a very delicious Bianco di Napoli pizza sauce, and then you have this really light and airy but crunchy crust, and how that retherms in an array of different ovens was a challenge in itself. How to get it properly cooked with all those three ingredients cooking properly together.
without a
And
gum line or any other technical challenges when you have
Right.
different ingredients at unusual temperatures. Also because we did not choose frozen pizza ingredients. I mean, our cheese is grande, and our tomatoes are Bianco di Napoli, and our dough is made from King Arthur flour. So we picked, like a chef would, all the best ingredients
Yeah.
through trial and error, figured out how to get the most from them. And then I think importantly, like these guys do in their restaurants every day, we presented them in a new way with our freak frame, which was, trust me, there's a lot of back and forth.
The freak frame is what the carrier for
It's a
the
bakeable
container.
paper tray, right? So it's a product you can buy on the market.
Hmm.
And what our goal was originally, and hence the brand name Pizza Frico, was to create a frozen pan-baked pizza that actually had Frico.
Little
There
crispy
were
edge.
some
Yeah.
on the market, and there still are some on the market, but not what we were trying to achieve. And so that tray does a few things. First of all, it keeps the cheese on board, which allows us to go edge to edge with cheese, which is something Brad and Brad insisted on. They liked the cheesy, crispy edge of Frico, that kind of grilled cheese texture
Yeah,
flavor.
and that's one of the joys of this style of pizza, of a pan
Yeah,
pizza.
and your book
Yeah.
was a huge inspiration for that. So, if you are going to achieve that, you need heat around the perimeter, and the
Mhm.
bakeable paper tray, which can handle up to 400 degrees in a conventional oven, does that beautifully. The problem we ran into was that the trays have bottoms, and as you well know, Professor, when you have a frozen piece of bread and you're retherming it, it is going to give off moisture, and
Mhm.
that moisture got trapped in the bottom in our beautifully, crispy
Yeah.
crust, which
Yeah.
was achieved through a lot of effort, baked in a pan with extra virgin olive oil. That didn't come out as crispy as we wanted, so we began by hand cutting holes in the bottoms of these frames. Now we have a machine that does it, but then, Brad Daniels had the inspirational brand idea of Freak Frame, which is trademarked, by the way.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So this is a big step. So you essentially trademark this new way of baking in the cardboard container, the pan,
Yes.
and and because it's cardboard, you can't do it any hotter than say 400 degrees. It has to work at 400 degrees, right?
It's a treated, yeah. And I mean, it's made intentionally. You can get them, from several suppliers in different configurations. But we chose the quarter sheet tray size. We thought, the trays were available for both our baking and for the frames. So that's how we ended up there, which can be a bit of a challenge at times with price point at retail, because our cost of goods with a 22-ounce net weight pizza are
Yeah.
higher than others on the shelf.
Yeah.
However, what we've come to find after doing hundreds of in-store demos or tastings is that particularly folks like Brad and Brad, who are parents with young families, appreciate a larger frozen pizza
Uh-huh.
with 6 servings that will
Yeah.
easily feed 4 people. So it's a great way to feed your family for under $20.
Yeah, so you have a real pizza night. So going back in, you had the frame, you figured out the perforations. You have to perforate them yourself even now, or were
Yeah.
you able to get the company, the manufacturer,
That's
to
it.
do a perf for you?
They would for like a truckload. So yeah,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not where we
So
are.
you weren't ready
We
for that, but
we
at
figured
someday.
out a machine to do it. Yeah,
So now you got your own. Is that well, I'm not sure if the
it's a
right term here
press.
is.
It's
Is
a
that trademarked technique, or what would you call it?
No, it took a while to figure out, but it's a click press basically,
Okay, so you
a
basically
pneumatic press. Yeah.
and that releases some of the moisture so that your undercrust can stay crisp.
Yeah, so whether you're a professional chef or you're, buying it for home, you can put the tray directly on the rack of the oven. You just want air to get to the bottom of the crust, or you can put it on a wire rack on top of a sheet tray. Either or, as long as air gets to the bottom of the crust, you get a good result.
This is cool. This sounds like one of those episodes on what NPR of the how I did this or how I made this or something like that, you know.
That's my dream.
Yeah, right. Well, you'll get on. You'll
To be
definitely
interviewed by
get
Guy
on.
Raz.
Yeah, you'll get on Guy Raz's show one of these days for this for sure. So this is so you've got the product now. You figured out along the way, you know, sort of each of the challenges that you were met with, including, you know, what to put on top, and then how to time everything. Because then in the end, you've got to be able to bake the pizza, not burn any of the components, and have everything come out perfect at the same time.
Yeah, and Peter actually, you know, making a reference to it was actually a guy that's frequently on your International Bread Symposium, who I had happened to read about because he was the guy who sold Chris Bianco and Chad Robertson a lot of the equipment that they used at Tartine Manufacturing when that was up and running, Stephen Bloom.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Stephen. He was kind enough to return my call, and I said, you know, we've got down the road with this very handmade product, and you know, I'm looking at the labor costs. Is there any way that we can make this at scale? And he said, absolutely, you can. So I'm coming out that way, and I'll be with my chef, Brad Winneman, and
Brad.
Yeah, the other Brad. So let's come see you guys at Drexel. So they did, and they were very gracious, and they're highly encouraging. And they said, look, you know, artisanal bread that's frozen has been a thing in this country since Nancy Silverton, who Brad Winneman had started with and actually ran La Brea Bread.
I remember that.
To
Yeah.
the point of, you know, I had 400 employees there at one time. So he said, you can do this, and there is European equipment that can handle high hydration dough gently. You got to go see it. They don't send you any pictures. So we did see it, and we know that it's out there. It's our goal to be able to build our business to the point where we can actually utilize that equipment because it's very expensive. But for now, we're doing everything that we do by hand. So.
Wow. So, all right. So you're still in, maybe we'll call the entrepreneurial phase of the company, moving towards where you'll be, you know, mature enough to be able to mass produce or scale it up to another level. So what levels are you
we're
at
able to
now?
scale pretty well now. I mean, our biggest challenge, frankly, was getting from Brad's restaurant where, you know, we had limited space, limited production, but we had a great product. We got great, you know, critical acclaim from Food and Wine, doing the Philly Chef Conference.
You guys got listed in Food and Wine as one of the top new products of the year, right? I mean,
yeah, they've been really supportive of us. So
yeah.
Fortunately, it was kind of going back to Drexel. Mike Trout was running the Drexel Philly Chef Conference. He invited us to be part of the Monday lunch, which is a great venue. There's probably 20, you know, local Philly food people, generally casual concepts, you know, pizza guy, hoagie guy. And, you know, the people from San Pellegrino were there. They had a booth next to us. They were pretty friendly with Brad Kilgore already. And they were doing a brand activation at 2023 Aspen Food and Wine in their booth, which is, you know, a beautiful station out there. And they said, hey, we have this new flavored sparkling beverage, and we think it pairs well with pizza. We're doing an activation. Do you guys want to come out and serve your pizza in our booth with our beverage and do a couple paired pizzas? We're like, yeah, we could go do that. So
nice
you know,
offer.
I don't know what we expected, but, you know, Brad Daniels and I baked a bunch of pizzas. We froze them. We stuck them in cooler boxes. We flew to Denver. We drove over the mountains. We got out to Aspen. Brad Kilgore met us there. And we did we kicked it off with a rooftop party that was sponsored by Campari. And it went fantastic. People were raving about the product. And Hunter Lewis, who's the editor-in-chief of Food and Wine, came to the party. He's like, guys, this is really phenomenal.
That's awesome.
And then periodically throughout the next few days, as we were serving it at Aspen Food and Wine, he kept coming over and he brought the editorial team. And, you know, there were a lot of, you know, serious foodies there. And we had lines for, you know, the 2 days of service where people are like, this pizza's phenomenal. Like, yeah, this was made in Philly 2 weeks ago. It's frozen pizza. Like, they didn't believe us. And so they said, well, where can we buy this? And we didn't really have a business. We had a business set up, but we weren't really ready to be buying anybody. So, you know, we established our own website and figured out how to ship things frozen. which, as you know, Peter, is not easy or inexpensive. As I tell people, it'll cost me $50 to ship you a box across the street, which it does. So shipping it beyond, 2-day FedEx ground is kind of cost prohibitive. But right now we can ship east of the Mississippi, which is the FedEx 2-day ground limit, which a lot of population. We ship a 3-pack for $100, a 5-pack for $150, which is on par with Gold Belly and any of the better, artisanal pizzas out there.
So that's how people could get it now is they can have it shipped in if they want it that way. But it's in the East Coast and within your range, some of the stores are also carrying it, right?
Yeah, we've been in independent natural food retailers in the Philadelphia market for the past year and a half. And we were actually surprised by how well it did as quickly as it did. So we have a local co-op. You probably know them, Peter, Weaver's Way. They've been in Philly forever.
Yeah.
4 locations. Their biggest store is Ambler, right down the street from Brad's restaurant.
Amazing.
Their merchandiser said, "Hey, I read about you. Craig LeBon, who's the restaurant critic for the Philadelphia Inquirer, has tried our product, loves our product, loves Brad Daniels food." So he wrote some nice things about us. So people began to find out about the brand. And we started there. And, I did an in-store demo, and then I kind of forgot about it. They'd order periodically. And then, I don't know, 6 months later, I checked with the merchandising grocery manager. I said, "How are we doing with you guys?" She says, "You're doing great. You're our top selling pizza." Oh, what? I said,
"Wow.
We're beating Amy's. We're being Taglio della Pizza. We were the #1 seller in the store." Wow. Maybe we should sell your other stores. So we run around selling our other stores. We're still #1 at Weaver's Way. And then we reached out to two other great, kind of iconic regional natural foods retailers, one being Kimberton Whole Foods, which is nothing to do with Whole Foods. It's a family-owned and operated natural food store based in basically Phoenixville. They have 7 locations. And then River Woods, which is in the city of Philadelphia itself. And then we actually have our own freezer that we installed at Stone's Beer and Beverage, which is an artisanal beer distributor right in the Fairmount section of Philadelphia.
How much can you produce now in your current setup before you have to go to the next level of?
Along the way, we found a friend who after about a year of overnight testing with his baking team, who has his own bakery for his own in-house baking program, where they do traditional rolls, semolina breads, nothing with a really long high hydration or long fermentation. So, or pan baked. Like our product's hard, as you know, to make. So we, did a lot of testing. I'd say we probably did 20 rounds before we figured out the right process and workflow for their team to be able to create our crusts. And so right now, we could do, say, 1,000 a week. We're not quite there in sales yet, but, which for a handmade product is a fair amount. And then once we got that process dialed down, which, honestly was hard. I mean, we weren't sure we'd ever be able to get it. So once we did, we took a space to take our crusts, blast freeze them, and then top them sauce, cheese, blast freeze them again, package them in a freak frame, labeled freak frame, ready for sale. So
you bake them in metal pans first, right? You have to have some kind of a hard form, and then you can freeze the pre-baked crust, and then the process of building it back into the frozen product begins. Yes. So this is pretty exciting because again, you're still in the early stages. I know that back when I was doing products too, when everything is at this stage, when you're doing 1,000 or less, that's like the big co-packers don't want to even talk to you. But do you foresee it being something that can be handed off to a co-packer at some point when you're ready to do 30,000 units and things like that?
Here's the challenge. So we went to every, legitimate artisanal baker in town. They didn't want to touch our product, right? They were busy with their own thing.
Yeah.
And we were way too small for a co-packer frozen pizza.
Well, they're happy for you to do all the work right now, and then they'll want to jump in later on when you got it all figured out.
Well, we're fortunate. We have a really good, collaborator on making the crust right now, and he's invested for his own purposes and ours in larger equipment, so we can continue to scale, basically doing what we're doing for a while. And then I have consulted with, you probably know George Erasmus, he used to run Tribeca Oven, so he's friends with Brad Winneman. Those guys have a lot of contacts in that space.
Yeah.
So when we need to, if we ever need to, get somebody with the type of automated equipment that can handle the high hydration dough, they're out there.
Yeah.
I think the difficult part, Peter, is finding a bread maker that also wants to be a frozen pizza maker. So we took on the frozen pizza part ourselves.
Yeah.
So, we have a, state of Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture certified facility so that we can make and ship and, do all the things we need to do to grow our business. For the foreseeable future, we're self-funded. We're happy to grow at a reasonable pace. And right now we're in the process of launching our food service lineup. So these guys have been our food service clientele, selected chefs at country clubs and, people around the Philadelphia area that we deliver to. But we're working with a broker in the in Florida, who's got a bunch of food service lines, a lot of experience, and South Florida, the state of Florida being probably the highest density hospitality in terms of clubs and hotels and places that we think could be great clients for our product in the country. So we're going to launch food service in Florida.
Well, you guys are between the three of you, you're all so well connected. You do this, you're at all the shows, you've known people for years and built relationships as a, marketing and salesperson, and the chefs have been building their alliances with other great chefs. And so you're positioned to go.
I mean, Brad Daniels, originally, Brad Kilgore and I, started this thinking it would be the two of us, and Brad was busy, building out Tricini, and we were kind of paying him just to do the development work. But at some point, we didn't really have any other place to go other than Brad's restaurant to make it. And at that point, we said, "You're our full partner, and
come on in, yeah.
Let's change the cap table here." So and one of the other important relationships that Brad has developed from his hard work and just being a great chef over the years is with Mark Vetri, and Mark Vetri's very good friend Chris Bianco. Yeah. And those guys, we were at Pizza Expo in Atlantic City, and we were, pizza guys, they test 15,000 sauces and 14 combinations. And we were, I was there with Purell. I had a booth there. So I was across the way from the guy who was there for Andrew, who was there for Bianco de Napoli. And I didn't even realize that they had a food service line. So they have a food service line that actually is pouched instead of cans, which in food manufacturing is a big advantage, because metal detection is a critical hazard for food manufacturing that you'd have to invest in serious equipment to detect. Now, we have no metal in the facility, so it's not a problem for us. And of all the tomatoes that we tasted, theirs was the best by far.
Yeah, Bianco de Napoli tomatoes. Yeah, so you're working with Rob de Napoli and that whole company.
Chris, yeah, and I think honestly, because of Brad's relationship and being a Mark Vetri alumni, we asked, hey, it was kind of a bold request. Do you mind if we use your brand on our packaging, because we want to be recognized for the quality of the ingredient?
Yeah.
And they said, yes, sure.
Yeah, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, you were the chef de cuisine, weren't you, at Osteria?
Yeah, many moons ago. So it's
which was a Mark Vetri. Many people know Mark, but they didn't
Mark
know
Vetri and Jeff Michaud. It's James Beard, award-winning chef and restaurant. And I was with Mark full-time for about 7 years, where obviously the love for Italian food and natural organic processes and old world technique really kind of was driven in. I was before that at Del Posto under Mark Ladner.
Yeah, wow. So you worked with some of the big names, yeah.
And then I picked up and moved to Boulder, Colorado for 2 years, where I had a short 4-month hiatus in Las Vegas where I opened Vetri Vegas.
Oh, really? When you were in Boulder, did you get to know Kelly Whitaker in Boulder, in Boston?
Well, when I got back from opening Vetri in Vegas, I went and worked for the Wolf's Tailor, and I R&D'd all their grain and their pasta procedures, and kind of worked with them for about 9 months between Wolf's Tailor and Bruto and dry storage and their whole. That's when they were really getting deep into cultivating their own historic grains and opening the mill. So I'm a dear friend with Kelly Whitaker, and was really honored to work with those guys for about a year.
Kelly was one of the very first guests we had on Pizza Quest years ago.
He's the best, man. Kelly is awesome. Kelly is he is a flour nerd for sure.
Yeah, and a great cook. I loved eating at pasta.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I had a really great time working with those guys, and especially on the refining the noodles using really obscure grains, and that was really cool.
Perfect for Tricini, right?
Everything is cumulative in this world. You got to learn everywhere you go.
It's wonderful how these things kind of converge and come full circle, and the fact that each of you have developed your own skill sets and then been able to come together and create something new. Before we run out of time, I just want to get back into the nuts and bolts of the pizza, because the people who are listening want to go, without revealing any sort of trade secrets or company secrets. You mentioned that you're still using the King Arthur flour. You use King Arthur as your primary flour, and what hydration level is the dough, and what makes it a little tricky? 80%. So it's a wet, sticky ciabatta-like dough.
Yeah.
Starting to sound familiar. This dough is starting to sound real familiar to me.
You may recognize.
I remember having an early prototype taste of it. Matt, when we met in Atlantic City, I think a couple of years ago. Okay, so you got a long fermentation or cold fermentation? How do you do the fermentation?
So we do a full 24-hour pull-ish, very low percentage of yeast in that. And then day 2, we take the remaining ingredients with the pull-ish and we mix in stages. We then have a short bulk ferment where we do a series of book folds. Then we divide. And this is something we went back and forth between divide dough trays or directly into the trays we're going to bake in, and we land after we divide, we
dough tray
rest for another cold ferment for another 24 hours, or even sometimes a little longer.
Yeah.
And then day 3, dough gets trayed up. Good extra virgin olive oil in the pan, slow proof, the traditional knock it down, let it rise again, kind of stretch it out to the corners. Then when it looks right, a few hours later after that process, then it's custom built from our friends that are doing the baking. Racks that hold, Matt, correct me, they hold, 120 trays each. And then they get slid into a big rotating rack oven for the bake. Then once they come out of the oven, they're quickly removed to allow it to cool down on racks. And then from there, it's basically just a beautiful, crusty, delicious square pizza crust. And then from there, they're cooled to room temperature, and then just like a regular bread delivery route, they get delivered to our facility where we build pizzas.
It's a process, you guys, and that's all just getting the pizzas made. Then there's the whole process, as you've described earlier, of selling it, finding the outlets, all the work you've done to build the alliances and the network of local merchants, and then be able to. There's so much going on in this story. So one final question, and that is, do you have a timeline and a vision for how you want to grow it, how big you want to grow it, where you see it? Let's say in the next 3 to 5 years going.
We think that potential is huge. Obviously, at retail, frozen pizza is a $6 billion market. It's not small.
Yeah.
We think, with the things like what Katie is doing in St. Louis and Anthony Mangieri have done, and some other people that have elevated people's level of expectation of quality when it comes to frozen pizza, that we're in a great category at a great time, and we have a very unique product. I don't
Yeah.
think, what
You're checking
anybody
all
else
the
is
boxes,
doing
that's for sure.
similar to ours. And so, I think we created a cool brand. And for the retail thing, the challenge is cost of goods. Is, if you want something on the shelf for $10, you better be able to make it for $2.50. We did not build that pizza this way. So Pizza Freak was not built for a price point. It was built for quality.
Yeah.
So, right now we're selling direct to retailers in our marketplace. We've been approached by some national retailers, they're brokers, they've read our story, they like our product. And in time, our cost curve will bend. So to answer your question, I think, to reach a national level will probably take us 3 years. It's a lower barrier to entry and margins are better in food service, although it does have its own challenges because every customer is every customer. So we're working through, professional brokers and through the distribution that services clubs, hotels, and folks like that. So that's a new thing we're working on now. But, I think like any entrepreneur would tell you, the best laid plans of mice and men.
No, but you got to have a plan. You got to,
You got to
go
have
for
a
it.
plan,
Well,
right?
so,
And
well,
then
right now, I got to
it's
ask
like
you before
knocking down one hurdle after another. That's what
before
we
I
do.
forget to ask this, if anyone who's watching or listening to this now wants to, you know, get on the horn and order some and have some shipped directly to them, what's the best way for them to order?
We have a website. It's www.pizzafrico, PIZZAFREAKCO.com. If you Google it, it's easy to find.
Wait, let me
And
just repeat that. It's Pizza Frico, and it's Pizza Freak, and then with a CO at the end, pizzafrico.com.
.com.
Okay, that's the website. So that's where people should go, and then from there they can order and they can get the
Yes,
pricing and everything
our
else.
Instagram is the same. Our,
Good,
TikTok and
all that.
Pinterest, all of it.
Or if
So
you're in the Philadelphia area, we're in about 20 plus retailers currently.
So in Philly, it's that'll be easier for the Philly folks to be able to get it directly at the retailers,
Sure.
and probably save a few dollars on shipping. But so again, my family being in Philly, they're all going to be running out to get these. So I've got to make sure that I tell them where to go. And all that information as far as like what markets are carrying it, is that on the website as
It's on our
well?
website. Yep.
Okay, beautiful. Well, that's helpful because right now, we're kind of like in the early stages of something that it should be pretty exciting to follow over the next couple of years. Do you foresee the need for having to bring in investors to take it to another level? Shark Tank type stuff or other kinds of angels to come in and be able to get you to where you can be mass producing, or is that still too far in the future?
The answer is yes. To scale at retail, you definitely need cash to be able to do it because there are a lot of expenses as you go out to the retail market
Yeah.
that we'll need assistance to do. So, so far we've, self-funded everything in our development. Our goal was to find product market fit, right? Is to be sure that the market would buy a product and what price they would buy it for, and would they come back and buy it again. And we've achieved that. It is not easy. Putting a product on the shelf does not guarantee that anybody is going to buy it. Doing very frequent in-store demos, which I do 3 to 4 a week, where you hand people a piece of pizza and say, "How do you like this?" It's very exciting because when people discover it for the first time and they're kind of blown away that it's frozen pizza and they go buy one and to feed their family, and then they come back next month and they see me, "Hey, I love your pizza." And we make these in-store demos a tasting experience. We work with a lot of other local Philly food producers. We have mushroom friends, we have pickle friends, and we try to top them creatively because part of our brand idea is to have a celebration at home of pizza night, which about 40% of the population has. a dedicated pizza night.
Yeah.
And so few people have time to cook these days, but they can prep a couple simple ingredients, whether it's sliced onions or saute some mushrooms or buy some pepperoni and put it on their own pizza, put it in the oven, and have a great pizza experience they created themselves.
There you go. So you kind of bring together, like you said, the chef experience, the artisan experience, and the fun pizza experience, and all for the family. Well, congratulations, guys. I know somewhere along the way we lost Brad Kilgore.
He had a conflict at 11:30.
And I know that, and we were having some internet, connectivity issues as well. So, but thanks for both of you, Brad Daniels, Matthew McKenney. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing this story. And, for those of you who are following along, then, put a pin in it and keep revisiting the site, because we're going to watch, I think, a interesting story of, well, maybe the next time we'll see you, so it'll be on Guy Raz's, How I Built This, or one of those shows, or as you're telling the story, I keep imagining seeing you on Shark Tank, trying to convince Mr. Wonderful not to squash you like a bug, and but it's happening, and what I'm really enjoying hearing is how organically you've brought it along, how step by step, the pieces have fallen into place in a beautiful way, and you're not rushing the process, which again is one of the secrets to a great pizza, is don't rush it, and you're not rushing it. You're making it happen. Because I remember hearing about this, way back 4 or 5 years ago when you were just getting it, it was still in the ideation phase. So it's wonderful to see how far it's come. So we'll get you back on another time to give us updates.
Thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you so much for coming on,
Thank
for
you
sharing
guys.
your story, and for being so transparent about how everything goes. So if those who are listening who want to bring a product to market, got a few tips here that you can follow up on, and stay in touch with. Can folks reach you through the website if they want to write to you directly?
Yep.
So go to the website and write to Matthew or to Brad, and
DM on Instagram.
to Brad or Brad, and we will you will track it over the next couple of years. And thanks again. Congratulations. I'll see you when I'm up in Philly. I know, Matthew, you live very close to where my family lives, so we'll get together for dinner. Maybe we'll head out to Tricini, which I've been wanting to do for a long time.
I'd be honored.
Thank you, Chef.
Guys, take care, and we'll see you next time around. And thank all of you for joining us on Pizza Quest. We'll see you.
Thank all you guys as well. Appreciate you guys.
And we'll see all of you viewers and listeners at the next episode. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.